Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us today for the 11th meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority. And may we use in our directives for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. Okay, we have before us the meeting minutes for the regular meeting of February 25, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve same, waiving reading thereof?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Okay, this brings us to our first public portion, comment portion of our meeting. Do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to address the board? Jason Boyd, County Administrator, do we have any electronic requests for public comment? Indicating none, thank you. Moving on to resolutions. Madam Clerk, first resolution, please.
In the Utilities Department, resolution approving plans, specifications, and estimates of cost in the amount of $1,572,300 for Cell C4 Expansion Phase 6 Part D Cell Preparation Project Number 421L and advertising for bids for the same, bid opening April 21st, 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving plan specifications and estimates of cost in the amount of $185,064.79 for sanitary sewers for Hidden Village Estate Subdivision Phase 3 in Perry Village, job number 20-06.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving plans, specifications, and estimates of cost in the amount of $177,382.14 for a water line for Hidden Village Estate Subdivision Phase 3 in Perry Township, job number 20-05.
Move for consideration.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution certifying sanitary sewer improvement costs to the Lake County Auditor for parcel number 01B098E1130.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing execution of agreements between the Lake County Board of Commissioners and various entities and organizations for the fiscal year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Funds.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. David, do you want to chime in on any of that or not just yet? Please. David Ordaci, Planning Commission.
Good morning, David Verdaci, the Lake County Planning Community Development Director. Lake County has received $1,542,550 in special allocation through the FY19 CDBG program. The funds are being called CDBG, CV, also CARES Act money. This is the second round of projects that are being funded with the special allocation. All these projects will prevent, prepare for, or respond to the coronavirus.
Very good. Any additional discussion? Dave, thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution appointing various members to the Local Corrections Planning Board.
Move to approve.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution supporting designating roads, bike paths, and bike lanes through Lake County as U.S. Bike Route 30.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Dave, you want to come on up and give us another swing at that? And as you're walking up, I will give you high praise. As we became aware of this, we threw it out to the team. And you very naturally took charge, so I give you high praise for all the effort you put into connecting all the dots and getting all the interested parties to make this a good idea, better proposal. So,
Okay.
Thank you. Now you've got the microphone. So.
Thank you. The ODOT has contacted us and asked us to prepare a resolution of support for US Bike 30. It is a bike route across the United States. Currently, Ohio has a couple other ones. I think there's US Bike Route 50 down around Cincinnati and maybe one around Columbus. These are to connect the United Biker cyclists can use them to go from cross country from shore to shore. It is good for tourism. It's good for possible new funding sources for roads in the future. ODOT is really high on this, and it's a very good project for us to get involved in.
Very good. And just to give a little bit of background, some of the stuff I'd alluded to, you coordinated with Metro Parks, obviously your planning commission experience. I'm going to even say your experience as being a Boy Scout leader came in handy. I could see those common threads and different amenities. Do you want to talk about some of the suggestions as to the things that were being considered for this?
Right now, the ODOT had given us a proposed route that went through various communities in Lake County. Several of the entities in Lake County were concerned about the route because of the safety factor. Because there were some hills and some roads that were 55 miles an hour, small shoulders and stuff like that. So we started exploring the possibility of moving the route to another location. And currently, this resolution is only supporting US 30. US Bike Route 30, we are going to contact ODOT and try to relocate the route that they had suggested with our suggestion. But also bring it closer to our suggestions will bring it closer to Lake Erie and closer to the wineries, which are two very important aspects of Lake County.
We're also talking about the Lake Shore. I believe that was also under consideration that the Port Authority has been working on with Metro Parks.
Yes.
Which would ultimately be perhaps the longest continuous bicycle and walk path in the state.
Yes.
I'm trying to get all these commercials in here. So.
Yeah. They currently, I think that the Port Authority is trying to get a boardwalk from Fairport Harbor over to Lakeview Bluffs, Lake Erie Bluffs. Whatever the Metro Park is, I'm not sure what it is. Eventually, if that we have a route going through Fairport, possibly going through Fairport Harbor, and then connecting into Lake Erie, Erie Bluffs. Eventually, we would probably have ODOT move the bike route to the boardwalk after it's built.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Well done. Any further discussion for David? Thank you. Thanks, Dave. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $1,683,212.03.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $583,265.60.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring an appropriation within various general fund accounts.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, this brings us to our departmental reports portion of our meeting. Going to utilities, we have Gary Fedak in as our guest representative here. Gary, I believe you have a presentation for us today.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. We just wanted to provide a brief report that was generated from the American Society of Civil Engineers. Before I get into the report, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that entity known as ASCE, is the abbreviation in the industry. ASCE is basically a national organization. They provide technical and professional and educational information for civil engineers. There's approximately 150,000 members in this organization. And they focus on infrastructure, of course, developing engineering standards, and dealing with construction codes. So the first slide you have up there, we just have a few slides today. This report was just issued in February 2021. I know that the text is a little bit small, but I'll walk through the slides pretty quickly. Just to give you an order of magnitude, this is about a 150-page report that I'm going to summarize in a couple of minutes. And the topic of this report is the report card for Ohio infrastructure in 2021. So just to be clear, we're not talking about Northeast Ohio, we're not talking about Lake County. This is a report for infrastructure for the state of Ohio specifically. So we move on to this slide. Again, basically this is something that we're all familiar with. We're going to get into a grading scale of A through F. F in their mind is a mediocre infrastructure, probably infrastructure that needs attention. The point of this presentation, we're going to give you some grades as to it relates to infrastructure in Ohio. So if we move on to the next slide, again, I just want to give you some brief background, but they're grading on basically 8 categories in this report, probably categories that most people are familiar with. The highlights of those reports would be, is there enough capacity in that particular infrastructure? What's the condition of that infrastructure? What are the future needs of that infrastructure? They're looking at it from a lot of angles. This is not just one perspective. If we move on to the last slide, this is kind of the key presentation. They've looked at 16 different categories of infrastructure in Ohio. The overall grade for Ohio is a C-, which would be that term mediocre. As it relates to utilities, obviously we're focused on drinking water, was unfortunately a D+ in Ohio. Solid waste, or landfill as we call it, was a B-, and wastewater was a C-. Again, there's other categories there I won't get into, but as it relates to roads, dams, rapid transit, and so forth. So basically this report kind of gives us a heads up that there's a lot of work to do in Ohio as it relates to infrastructure. Transitioning back to our department, as it relates to utilities, we're going to continue to invest as we need and stay in compliance with regulations as it relates to infrastructure. As you've seen in the past, we kind of have a strategic plan, a long-range plan. It's consistent with our investment needs in all 3 departments, water, sewer, and the landfill. We'll continue to advance and enhance our facilities and maintain compliance based on the future needs of our customers. We typically call that a balanced approach as it relates to funding infrastructure. And we do that on an annual basis as part of our capital improvement program. So in summary, in the coming months, you'll see, like you have in the past, our recommendations for capital projects, both from a design perspective and also recommendations to start new construction projects of various capacities and various investments in all three of our departments. So the design and construction activities will commence shortly. And then to put that in perspective, lastly, LCDU did about 34 to 35 capital projects last year throughout the three departments on 2020. And we invested about $14 or $15 million last year, and we'll continue to do that, assuming finances are available and approvals are granted. So certainly a lot of work to do in Ohio. We'll continue to do our part and move forward. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Gary. And given your role with utilities, I think you can speak with authority on this. Lake County Department of Utilities, you've been very proactive as an organization as far as annual maintenance, improvements, trying to stay ahead of system failures. Approximately how many miles a year would you estimate of pipe in the ground are we replacing? I seem to remember somewhere around 7. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, well, we have a higher target of probably 6 or 7. I mean, funding at this point is probably more in that 3 to 4 miles per year. Certainly we have a higher target to achieve, but some of that's limited by our availability of funds and also what we need to do at some of the facilities. So the board occasionally sees requests that are facility-related improvements, generator-related improvements, electrical-related improvements. So when I talk about a balanced approach, it's not just all pipe. It's not always just underground piping, but certainly we have to look at compressively from a big picture.
So quality, we're always meeting EPA guidelines. We have high quality product being delivered and processed as we're disposing of wastewater back into the lake. But reliability, there's been significant efforts put into maintaining reliability, minimum breakdowns, breakage, disruptions in service. Those are all key areas.
That's a key word, the reliability, and we would also translate that to resiliency or redundancy, maybe is a more common term. But yes, that's why we're replacing generators, because of they've got to the end of their life. And we make sure we have those backup capabilities to electrical services, for example.
And something also might be of interest to the public, Lake County Department of Utilities has the ability to self-perform many of the emergency repairs that you typically encounter.
Yes, every day we have our maintenance crews self-performing work with our own in-house staff. Certainly on the multi-million-dollar projects, those are where they turn into capital projects, but every day, both in water and sewer and in landfill, we have our maintenance staff addressing and repairing and remedying situations that develop.
Excellent, great presentation. Commissioner Young, Commissioner Plechnik, anything for Gary?
I do have a question. Thanks, Gary. Good report. You mentioned, I believe, that Ohio is ranked mediocre in some of these major, extremely important categories. Am I accurate on that?
Yes, I mean specifically, again, if you referring to this 100-page report, their overall rating for Ohio, based on 16 different categories, was that C- range, and then the graphic that we have up breaks that down to, if you're more interested in transit, then they've created a grade for transit. If you're more interested in the condition of schools, that's one of the 16 categories, but naturally I focused on the 3 relative to our utility department.
Okay. Are those ratings common throughout the Midwest, maybe even throughout the country, or does Ohio really lag most other states? Are we at the bottom of the barrel, the middle of the barrel, or where would you put Ohio? Or maybe you don't have any of that other data from the other states.
Ohio's in the middle or a little bit above the middle, and again to put that in perspective, if you want a national grade, sorry to focus on the grades, but if you want to focus on a national grade throughout the United States, infrastructure's in that D to D plus range. So we are in a C in Ohio, so I would say we are a notch above the rest of the United States, or a little bit higher than that, but we are not in the exceptional category.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. President, I would just ask, where would you ballpark Lake County? Obviously, the grading system didn't apply to us specifically, but I'd be surprised if we didn't outperform in some of these categories relative to the state, particularly drinking water.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being an employee of that department, I would rate our grades
Totally unbiased, of
much
course.
higher, but I mean, I think we have the facts to support that in terms of our customer service, our response time, our redundancy in our systems, our reduction in the number of breaks that happen per year, the amount of staff that we have to address problems. Other utilities may not have the staff to address that, and maybe 2 or 3 days before they even start to address the issue, where we were addressing it at 3 a.m. in the morning due to calling in staff overnight to address that problem. So we're trying to be proactive and try to be responsive.
I just think it's important for people watching from home that these are statewide grades. They don't apply specifically to Lake, and that our proximity to Lake Erie gives us a much bigger supply of clean drinking water than many counties in Ohio, and that we work hard to distribute it in the safest possible way.
And I would emphasize that again, our audits and our reviews by the Ohio EPA have always come back positive with high marks, and non-compliance issues are not really an issue.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Gary, thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
If there's no further discussion, moving on to Job and Family Services.
Hi, Commissioner.
believe
Yes,
you
I do have a
presentation.
report today.
I'm looking forward. Thank you, sir.
So as everyone knows, or I assume they know, once the pandemic started, early on, once the pandemic started, and it was evident that people were going to be either laid off or losing their jobs, the state of Ohio created what they call a pandemic unemployment insurance program to help those persons that were affected by the pandemic. And it was critical that they created that program to help persons have the finances that they were losing because of businesses being shut down and restaurants and so forth. Unfortunately, there were other people who took advantage of that program. And what we've found over the past several months is that there are hundreds of thousands of fraudulent unemployment claims that have been filed. And what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about unemployment, clarify for the citizens of Lake County how unemployment is structured, and also share some resources that persons can access if they feel like their identity was stolen in regards to unemployment claims. So I'd like to start by saying that to clarify right from the start that the Ohio Unemployment Assistance Program is a state of Ohio Job and Family Services program, and that the local Job and Family Services, Lake County or any other county in the state, is not responsible for an unemployment insurance program. That's difficult for people to understand because when they get a letter, they see Job and Family Services, but what they don't necessarily see is Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. So I wanted to clarify that. However, we've received, as you can imagine, hundreds, and I mean hundreds of calls from residents who've received these letters and these notifications. And so we've right from the start have had these resources available to refer them to the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services to report their concerns. So that's something that we've been doing all along. Again, there have been hundreds of thousands of fraudulent unemployment claims. This isn't unique to Ohio, it's nationally. And the state has been trying its best to try to address this issue, but it's a tough one to address. Recently, Governor DeWine initiated, I should say, a collaborative between private sector and public sector to try to address these fraudulent claims. And so they're working collaboratively with experts in how to address and take care of these false claims. For Lake County and throughout the state, the state has created first for what I would call victims of identity theft. There's a phone number that they can call where the state has hired hundreds of people to respond to those phone calls. There's also a website that a person can go to report online if they feel like their identity has been stolen and they've received one of these letters. I got to throw in there, just so everybody understands, I'm the director of Lake County Job and Family Services, and I got one. I got a letter saying, you've been approved for unemployment benefits. And thankfully, you guys haven't fired me. So that was a fraudulent claim, right? So I went online to the website and reported to the state that I myself had received that. I also know that the commissioners are aware that the auditor's office, Lake County Auditor's Office, has received many reports from the state saying county employees have applied for unemployment and they're still employed. So it's just an example of a lot of people have been affected by these fraudulent claims. The other thing that the other point I wanted to make is that the State Department of Job and Family Services Unemployment Director has clarified that this is not the result of the unemployment system being hacked. So it's not like cybersecurity was breached and the system was hacked. These fraudulent claims are because persons have stolen other person's identity using their social security numbers, whatever else they have gained access to file these fraudulent claims. I think that's important for people to understand too. The system has not been hacked. It's nefarious people, stealing people's identity that has caused this problem. So once again, there's a phone number that people can call, and that phone number is 833-658-0394, and they can speak to a person to report their concerns, or a person can go to the website titled unemployment.ohio.gov, and when they go to that website, there's a link very clearly. It's very clear, it's intuitive to see the link where they can report identity fraud. And again, that's what I did. You click on that link and it gives you the opportunity to give demographic information, but also explain what the document you received says. Because some of these letters people are receiving are what's called a G99 form. And that's a form that you get if you received unemployment. You need to report that unemployment on your tax return. Others are like myself, a letter saying you've been approved for unemployment, I've never applied. Others are receiving documents that indicate here is your PIN to get access to the system. So there's all kinds of different documents that people may have received. No matter what type of document you received, if you haven't applied for unemployment and you don't know what this is about, I strongly encourage them to either call or go online and report that, so that the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services Unemployment Division can begin to address those fraudulent claims. We've prepared a press release in conjunction with the commissioners. Mr. Boyd and Suzanne Kasar helped put this press release together. We'll be distributing this press release to the media, and it explains a lot of what I talked about today, including having the phone number and the website to go to report if you received a letter regarding unemployment. I know that was a lot. Hopefully it made sense. I could try to answer any questions anyone has.
I will say thank you. It's a great report. The public needs to hear more of this. I know several weeks ago I spoke with you about a small business that was getting a little overwhelmed, shall we say, with false claims of employees that were never employees. And I thank you for clarifying that it's not a Lake County thing. Yes, jump in.
I forgot to mention something very
Dive in.
important. You just sparked it in my brain, though, so thank you. There's also employers. I was talking about victims of fraudulent claims. There's also employers that are getting documents saying one of your employees has filed for unemployment and you need to do this and do that. There's also a number and a website that employers can access, which is also part of the press release, to report if they're receiving documents saying that their employees have applied for unemployment when they know their employee has not applied for unemployment because they're working for them. So I apologize for interrupting you, Commissioner, but that was another piece that I apologize for not remembering to talk about during my presentation.
There are many moving parts, and I think that's a story worth telling, because very early on when going to the website, it was a very revealing that one of the required fields was if you have a person who was never actually an employee, you had to fill out all kinds of personal information that you're not going to have, and they're required fields. So I will say, and I'd like to give credit where credit is due, I did take the initiative to talk to their people. They were very professional on the phone, and they too were a little confused of, oh, good point, how would you have that if it's a false claim? But you can't prove it's a false claim because you don't have the information. But I did talk to Michelle Gilchrist, the local representative for Governor DeWine. She took it to their people. Hopefully those corrections have been implemented. But one of the fallbacks is the good old-fashioned fax machine. Just fill out fraudulent claim, employee has not worked here, unknown to this organization. So sometimes technology is not always the solution, but just a good old-fashioned fax number can come in handy. And I give again, as I like to say, high praise for walking at least me through this process, but thank you for putting this together, and to Suzanne and Jason, because the public has a need to know, because this is gumming up the works at a minimum as far as unemployment, and could be potentially devastating to small employers. There are dollars that may not be paid out from the governmental perspective. We receive federal dollars. If we are not honoring our obligation to participate in unemployment, we are in a catch-22. I know our prosecutor's office is working closely with our auditor's office on this, and that's not just a Lake County thing. This is national. But small employers, they could be overwhelmed with having to prepay and then saying, well, once it's been proven to be false. So there's a number of nefarious activities taking place, more than just individual identity theft. This is potentially crippling of small and dare I even say large businesses are getting hit. So I wouldn't want to be in the HR department dealing with this. Any more you'd like to add?
No, Commissioner.
Oh, bless you. Commissioner Young, Commissioner Plechnik?
No, I think you've covered it well.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Plechnik?
I'd just like to say thank you to our director. We're really grateful that you are giving this PSA to the public, because I get calls about this all the time. How do I report? How do I deal with the issue? So I think it's really important that we continue to share that information so that we can push back on the undue hardship that these fraudsters are putting on our small businesses and on our residents. It's unfortunate that we even have to go through the rigmarole of reporting, but it's the only way we're going to stop it.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. And now that I see the mask off, that beard's becoming more prominent as you're getting closer to retirement here.
Just trying to change it up a little bit.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to County Administrator Jason Boyd.
Matt's always trying to change it up. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioner Young. I just wanted to take a brief moment to share some what I think is really good news was as it relates to the coronavirus here in Lake County. I've got just a number of slides. This is the dashboard report that most public officials receive regarding cases. This first slide, and we will post these on our website as well. This is just from day one. So on the left is March the 17th, and to the right side of the bottom chart is today, or is yesterday. We're at 18,553 cases. The next slide, and I'll get to some good, the last slide's really unique, but this slide shows that peak, and the 2/3 to the right, that's about Halloween in November and Christmas, when we had the spikes. And as you go from left to right, obviously the news that we're all hearing and seeing, thanks to social distancing and masking and the vaccine, is we're on the downhill trend. If you go to the next slide, please. These are just reported cases the past month. I think any time except your economic portfolio, you've seen a flat line. It's a good thing for us. That line is really stabilized. So this chart here is from February 17th until yesterday, March the 17th. We're in that 20 to 40 cases a day, as opposed to the couple hundred a day that when we were in the peak of the pandemic here in Lake County. Next slide. This is the per day rate from the past 30 days from the 17th of March. You can see yesterday we had 22. I'll start at the 14th, 26, 20, 22. Once again, all good numbers. That being said, I think we're still need to be cognizant of our surroundings and do all the proper techniques that have got us to where we are today. The next slide, moving quickly along, I think is pretty neat. The vertical red lines represent holidays. So starting on the left is Memorial Day, and they're not accentuated until, well, if you look at the middle, that's Labor Day. We have a little bump. And then the third line from the right is Halloween, and that's when our spike appears to have started, plus or minus, in Lake County. And then the last two lines are Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve, and then concluding to the far right where we are today. So I wanted to share kind of a graphic representation of what we read and hear about on local and state media, which I think is a bit of good news. Regarding the vaccine, I think the clinics, the PODs, the point of dispensings, I believe there were 3 this week. There's one going on today, and I believe maybe tomorrow and Saturday. Once again, I encourage folks to go to the Health District's website, to the ArmorVax application where they can schedule. We anticipate our doses to continue to increase into 3,000 to 5,000 dose range over the next couple weeks. And with the leadership of the Health District and the fire chiefs, they will be meeting here shortly to discuss the next phase of their scalable vaccine process. If we have to open up larger clinics, those guys are doing a heck of a job on the planning. So I would say stay tuned as far as that is concerned, but we're heading in the right direction, and I wanted to provide today's a little graphic representation of what that looks like to us. So thank you.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Anything for our County Administrator?
Mr. President, I would just like to add, I was really grateful for the opportunity to join you as well as our General Health District for Lake County in Perry Village yesterday to see one of these vaccination clinics. It was mostly volunteer. There were folks from Lake Health, folks from all of our local fire departments, including, of course, Perry. And they were able to administer just about 1,000 vaccines in one day, absolutely free to everyone in the eligible categories, preference given to law enforcement and seniors. And it was great to see that cooperation. It's really the culmination of Operation Warp Speed. We wouldn't be here without the hard work of the Coronavirus Task Force, chaired by then Vice President Mike Pence. And it's really come down to the local level where our volunteers are getting out thousands and thousands of shots in arms.
Well said. Commissioner Young, anything you care to add, sir?
No, I just think that, but I will say that the vaccine is doing what people knew it would do, and of course, people that we are developing that herd immunity, if you will. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that the politicization of this whole thing I think, caused a lot of confusion and just undue fear in the minds of so many. And to me, that's such a disappointment. Even through today, where the old administration is claiming full credit for every step forward, and the new administration on the federal level is claiming that they've had to undo everything that the former administration did in order to get us where we are today, which is a better spot. So I just hope that the people of Lake County can see through all these ruses, if you will, that people are pulling for political reasons when lives are at stake. I think it says something that's not terribly positive about the state of our country, the mentality of our people today, where political victories sometimes seem to take preeminence over the lives of our citizenry. So I'm hopeful, though, that over time, Americans will develop an immunity to that sort of absurdity as well as an immunity to the virus. Well, that's it. Just wanted to pitch in a little bit there.
Well, Commissioner Young, if I could also ask, you yourself have had COVID, and for confidence for our public, Lake Health, I believe you received therapeutics. Did you want to kind of remind folks how that experience was for you? Because I think that was a very positive experience you had with Lake Health.
I had been in another institution outside of Lake County where I contracted COVID for treatment for a totally different disease. And what's funny is as soon as they found out that I had corona, which apparently was given to me by my own doctor, they came into my room one day and they said that your doctor has contracted the COVID, and we'd like to offer you a free test. I thought they were being so magnanimous. So at any rate, I took the test, and sure enough, I was positive. And the next day, they asked me to leave. So I left and went to Lake Health, and boy, what a contrast at TriPoint. I was treated professionally, was treated in an uplifting and encouraging manner. I wasn't just a number at TriPoint. I was a person in need, and I noticed everybody on the floor was being treated the same way. I was extremely impressed with TriPoint and Lake Health and the way they do business in the healthcare arena. So if my experience is any indication, and I believe it is, then we have some excellent medical facilities right here in Lake County.
Well, thank you. And your personal experience, again, as we like to say, try to take the politics out of it, your experience with our Lake County General Health District, Ron Graham, their team, working with Lake Health and their professionalism, and I would say wise use of local control. I know that's something we've talked about. Did you want to comment about your experience with our Lake County General Health District and Commissioner Graham and his team in general?
Well, they're so responsive and so aware of what's going on, and so able to describe problems and situations and solutions in layman's terms, that they've been a primary element, I think, in what I would consider a efficient response to the whole COVID emergency here in Lake. Not that everything has always run smooth and been done perfectly, but I think Ron and his crew did their job and did it extremely well.
Very good. Thank you, sir. And Jason, anything else you wanted to add? Oh, very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to our Commissioner Clerk. Madam Clerk.
Yes, I wanted to mention that next week we are going to have 2 commissioner meetings. The first one's going to be Tuesday, March 23rd. Second one is going to be our usual Thursday, March 25th, and both meetings will occur at 10 o'clock a.m., and they're both regular commissioner meetings. Just wanted to mention that.
Okay, making some notes here. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on, legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Okay, coming up to old business. Do we have any old business to come before this board? Moving on to new business. Do we have new business? Well, I'm going to throw a little new business in. We did have a concerned citizen give us a report about the health district and the telephone service. They were calling and getting disconnected. There was a glitch, and this is why it's so important. As we had our discussion with Job and Family Services, there are going to be glitches. Yeah, you know, this kind of comes back to that old saying of see something, say something. You know, something law enforcement is always trying to preach. But continuous improvement. One of the things from the health district's perspective, they were fielding calls all day long. But once their call center was fully engaged, calls were dropping. Our telecommunications team got on it that day, got it fixed. But because a concerned citizen observed something that didn't seem right, made that concern known to us, it was able to be addressed. So I ask the public, if you see something that doesn't seem quite right, you're not just complaining. You're making us aware of something we may not be aware of. We can't be everywhere. And in these difficult times, it is welcome to hear these things so that we can fix things. You know, that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound to cure. So again, building confidence, adding resiliency and redundancy. You too can be part of the team of keeping Lake County on the forefront of being one of the better counties in the state. So with that, do we have any other new business? None being heard. Moving on to our second public comment portion. Do we have anyone? Sir, Mr. Massey.
Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive, Concord Township. I have a question regarding the utility report. We're spending $14 to $15 million. Is that what I heard annually on the project for Lake County? And I'm just wondering, is there a number one issue for this year that must be looked at and no questions about? We must need to spend the money?
So just to be clear, that number was only for 2020, and that's within 3 different departments. So each department fluctuates in its annual spending. As it relates to 2021 in the future, I'm going to go back to my terminology of balanced approach. There is not one topic that we're honed on. We like, as I was trying to mention earlier, we like to do some underground piping. We need to do improvements at our landfill to plan for the future to make sure we can continue to operate that facility for the long term. And wastewater, it may be, we have some roofing projects that are important, which maybe people wouldn't think that that's important, but you have to do some architectural improvements. You may have to do some facility improvements. So we have a 5-year plan for those, but it's basically balanced and hopefully wisely invested.
So the point being that over the years, we have spent the money to make sure that we stay on top of, any potential problems. So there's not one issue that the citizens need to worry about. It's just an ongoing maintenance issue in the county. Is that correct?
Yeah, we look at it holistically or globally. And again, keep in mind that we in utilities are self-funded, so it's not taxpayer money. We have to take the money that comes into us, and we have to use it wisely. We have to pay our operational bills. We have to pay our staff.
And where does that money come from then? I need to be educated on that. Where does that money come from then?
That's the people that pay their utility bills.
Pay their utility bills?
For water, sewer, and then it's obviously the people that choose to use our landfill. That's where the revenues come from, the people that use our landfill.
So if my water bill has to go up, that's coming through your department to pay for ongoing maintenance, is that correct?
Well, I would break it down to 2 major components. Operations and maintenance is that one component. That's everyday ability, and then there's the capital improvements, the future improvements to continue to keep up with the infrastructure needs.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I could jump in, when you see your water sewer bill, there's several different components on it. One component is the fees that you pay your city, and your city council, your village council, your trustees control that fee if they have their own sewers to maintain. So there are piping within the city that needs to be cleaned, replaced within those jurisdictional limits. You also have the fee for the metering, which Lake County does perform in terms of monitoring how much water you're using. That meter person who comes out, and the bill generation, that has a cost to it. That's the smallest part of the bill. And then there's the county's portion, which might include the sewage treatment, or it might not. In Willoughby Hills, for example, I know that we actually use the Euclid sewage treatment plant, and some jurisdictions go outside the county there, so you might actually be paying to a different sewage treatment plant depending on where you're located in the county. So all of those elements make up your sewer bill, which makes it hard sometimes to track where the money is going, but you do have to pay close attention because people like to point the finger and say, oh, I didn't raise the bill, they raised the bill, but you really do need to drill down and see, was it the city? Was it the county? Was it an out-of-county sewage treatment plant that your municipality has chosen to use for whatever reason? And all those things create your bill.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's again, good global. One other thing I'll throw in there is grant dollars or external dollars. But speaking specifically to Lake County Department of Utilities and things under their care, custody, control. One example last year, downtown Willoughby, that project. I don't know if, Gary, you want to comment on it, or Jason. I know you had to live with that being a Willoughby resident there, but I think that was an example of a critical infrastructure project on a main street that was well managed, and there were a number of adaptations that took place with the city, the contractor, and utilities, continuous improvement. Did you want to comment on some of that as an example?
Yeah, so a project like that in Willoughby was probably identified a couple years ahead of time to get that programmed, identified, designed, and then eventually built. And that goes back to the bigger projects. Say, as a round number, not that project, I'm talking generally, but $1 million project, we're not going to self-perform with our county employees. So that gets publicly bid out, publicly competitively bid. But that's an example of us investing in a community, in an infrastructure that happened to be underground. And it was a very successful project. There was a lot of coordination with the businesses, and a lot of coordination with the community, a lot of preparation before the project even took place. And that's, the Lake County Utilities funded that project and paid for that project. The other part I guess I would clarify is just helping customers, or we can help customers, but just locally, you may be a customer of the city of Painesville. You are not a customer of Lake County Department of Utilities. So they have a wastewater treatment plant. They have a water department. So that's usually the first question, helping the citizen determine who are they a customer of. They may be calling Lake County, not understanding that they're a customer of the city of Painesville. And if the city of Painesville changes their rates, that is not the result of Lake County Department of Utilities. And their bills being generated by the city, their treatment is being processed by the city, and that's all standalone. We the county, don't own their facilities. So hopefully to help clarify some
yeah, thank you. And the other issue, the city of Kirtland, I know that in the downtown area, they're facing some major expenses. Is that related to the EPA and not necessarily anything that is happening in Lake County? There's going to have to be replacement of or tie-ins to their septic systems are failing in the downtown Kirtland area. Is that related to your department, or is that strictly the federal EPA that's mandating that?
So that starts with this term of compliance, which would be the EPA. So they are not in compliance in this case, as you said, the septic side of things. Any issue could be city, community, Willoughby Hills, Wickliffe, Lake County. If there's compliance issues, they need to be addressed. We need to stay in compliance with the Ohio EPA. I'm getting to your question just to give you some background. In that case, then if Kirtland reaches out to us at Lake County to assist or to participate. We have some infrastructure there that we own, and there's some infrastructure that they own. So it's kind of that discussion about Painesville. You know, when something happens and there's a break, even here locally, and there's water bubbling out of the ground, we need first to understand, is that a city pipe? Is that a county pipe? Is it somebody else's pipe? Because certainly we all want to respond, but we got to get the right entity involved. And Kirtland is in that same thing. So they have septic issues as it relates to EPA compliance issues, and obviously that involves funds and money. And is it going to be loans? Is it going to be grants? Is it going to be cash on hand?
Yeah, it's significant dollars for the residents in that area. Thank you very much for your time.
And as long as we're on the subject of education, Gary's a big infrastructure guy. You have issues with stormwater and sanitary sewers. They cannot be cross-connected. It was back in the day, that was not uncommon, where sanitary sewers and storm sewers were one and the same. Those have to be separate. Downspouts cannot go into a sanitary sewer because that water, that rainwater, that stormwater has to be processed at the wastewater plant. That costs money, but also ties up capacity. And Gary, do you want to comment on capacity and compliance as far as got to do everything? You kind of got that look of like John, you just did. So
no, I mean I could speak. I try to be brief. I could speak
here's
for
your
hours.
chance to be the geek. Come on, let your engineering side come out now.
No, it's not going to be engineering. I mean, I'll be brief as I can. A couple examples, but obviously at our wastewater treatment plant, we do not want to be treating rainwater that's inadvertently getting into our system. We want to be treating dirty water that's from residents. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's going to cost more if we're treating water that we shouldn't be treated. So we're going to go out of our way to prevent that from happening. And if we have to fund that, we'll assist. So specifically, coincidentally, today, the last item that was on the agenda, and I realize people don't understand all this, but just to give you a first-hand experience, the last item that was on the agenda today was a $7,000 repair that Lake County Department of Utilities funded on private property to assist that homeowner with a problem that they were responsible for because it was their infrastructure, not Lake County Utilities. It was not Painesville. That was their responsibility. So we have funded that improvement. We have made that improvement. Why have we made that improvement? Because we don't want that water leaking into our system, okay? Mm-hmm. and causing us more heartache, I guess would be the word. But the twist of that is, unfortunately, I mean, they still have to participate in paying back that loan that we've generated from a financing standpoint. We're not in a position to just provide grants to people, but we have paid for that initially and work with that homeowner to finance it to something that's palatable. We realize that a homeowner may not have $7,000 to fix their problem, just like I might not have money to fix my roof or replace my hot water heater or fix my car when the transmission goes bad. But we try to help where we can to where the limits and the laws allow. The Ohio Revised Code allows that to happen, so we try to assist. We are not, we can't violate any laws that are in Ohio.
That was a direct benefit, though, to protecting the integrity of the system, and there's and
helping the homeowner.
There you go. So it's a good partnership.
Yeah, on my property tax bill, I see though there is a stormwater charge. I call it sort of the driveway tax because any hard surface, that's how I'm being charged, for that. But my question is, what happens on the roads when we put salt on the roads in the wintertime? Where does all of that collect? I mean, that has to be processed, right? So we're putting something on the roads, the salt on the roads that we have to do something with before it goes into the lake. So are we compounding the problem by putting salt on the roads?
Well, again, I'm not trying to be evasive, but that is a different process in a different department within the county in terms of stormwater treatment. So to take care of those efforts is stormwater related, not Lake County utility related.
I see.
And so
you can see from the taxpayer standpoint, it gets a little confusing.
Yes, and that's where we all need to do a better job from an educational standpoint. Is what is this fee? Why is it being levied? So that is, an item that's being levied by stormwater to your point, address, things that are getting in the storm that can be harmful, that need to be addressed, that protect the environment, protect wetlands that may flow into, that's not my area of expertise. We could certainly get you in touch with the director of stormwater, and they could explain it better than I ever could.
Well, I think I found the expert I need to ask questions on. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President?
Sir.
Just to close on the stormwater issue, that's also one of local control because your individual municipality decides whether or not to opt into that program. You'll only pay that fee if your council or trustees voted to participate, in which case the fee is put on all the residents' bill for that municipality, but it also makes that municipality eligible for stormwater grants, which are typically used for flooding and other pollutive issues that affect more than one yard. That's kind of if I had to sum up the standard, if it's just your yard having the flooding problem, not eligible, but if it affects multiple yards, it is a project that's eligible. And typically your city engineer will be the person working with the county to try to get those grants. So if you have a serious flooding issue on your street impacting more than one house, and you do see that fee on your bill, that's the time to call up your village, your council, your trustees and say, hey, might we be eligible for a stormwater grant because this impacts not just me, but multiple residences. But you're only eligible for those grants if you are one of the municipalities that pays in.
Very good. Moving on, Jason Boyd, do we have any electronic submissions for public comment? Indicating none. Thank you, sir. Okay, this brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today. This meeting stands adjourned.